Peter de Almeida. Good evening. We are
Good
going
evening.
to have, in fact, the last program I will do on my resistance series, and your conversation today being based on kind of a new movement that you have called the Artist of the People's Movement. I think I got that correct. Kind of brings a nice ending to, or a significant ending to my series, where I spoke with many artists within the context of the 2022 April protest movement that was initiated in Sri Lanka. And now the artists have formed a kind of group to make sure that what people stood for is not forgotten. In fact, that it will be taken further. And at this juncture in time in Sri Lanka, where people are wondering now, what is the future of the Aragalaya? Where did it go technically? Because Galleface, we had to clear it. So it's a good way to kind of discuss these issues, talk about future plans. Not that you're in any way representative of, what happened. There were too many diverse elements involved. But I would speak with you as an artist who was very much part of the movement, in which art played a great role. Unlike, say, the 71, the insurgency that came up 88, 89, which was inherently connected to violence. This is the first time in the history that Sri Lankans launched a protest connected to arts. So that itself is very significant, and therefore the artists have become significant in that sense. So though you are not representing the whole Aragalaya as such, I'm glad you came to speak to me about, where the artists hope to take this, at least the group that you're involved in. Go ahead, Pete.
Okay, so thank you very much, Madhubhashini, for giving me the background and the context of this specific conversation today. Now, the artists of the People's Movement came together in April when things were beginning to happen. And then we thought, okay, why don't we do something as artists? And then some discussion, 6 or 7 people got together. And then we thought, okay, why don't we, instead of doing something very small, why don't we go for something big and see whether we can pull all the artists together on an independent, non-political kind of an organization. So we quickly came up with the name. Jana Aragalaya Kalakaru, we call it in Sinhala. Because the word movement in Sinhala, you remember, you and I spoke about this and we asked you to check with your dad. Vyapare, Janata Vyapare. Same word used for business also. So not a very good Sinhala word. So we thought we'll call it Jana Aragalaya Kalakaru. Anyway, to make a long story short, so we came out and called artists from English theatre, Sinhala, musicians, writers, poets, and Tamil as well. Dancers, graphics artists, lighting artists, camera photographers, the whole range, not only actors. And we were quite amazed at the turnout. We met at Independence Square, had a few performances, and we all marched, very colorful march, And they were depicting various aspects of the problems of people facing. Mind you, by that time, the country has gone to bankruptcy. And the issues and the politics, different ways, very creatively. And
I was there, Peter. I was there, and I had never seen such a variety, creativity. And in fact, there were people next to me miming the washing of the sari. And on the other side, there were people with masks. It was real life and art coming together in unprecedented ways. And the sheer numbers was incredible.
Yeah, I think we had about 2,500, 3,000. And diversity. English, Tamil, and we had slogans in Tamil as well. So and then we ended with a meeting, we spoke, and that's the first time we raised this question of Atharamadiyawa, sovereignty of the people being exercised on the streets, and that caught on. Anyway, then we thought, okay, now we were there, we were meeting regularly. Then the second protest we had, I can't remember the exact date. That was one of those 9th type days, that was not as, numbers weren't as large, but very impactful. Then we thought, why don't we, instead of just being a protest group, can't we get together and come up with a purpose, because we need to be in this for a while, because we realized that the country was going to face enormous hardships, and we will, Madhubhashini, over the next months and years, will face a catastrophic situation for the large numbers of poor people and others in this country. So we came up, we had a workshop with about 25 people, and we spoke about the Aragalaya. What does that mean to you? And then there were three aspects of the Aragalaya that these ideas could be grouped in. One was the protest element. People protesting against what had happened, protesting against the political failure. The second was relief. People were talking about starting community kitchens, getting aid to provide medicines that are in short supply, food, nourishment, that aspect. Third was very interesting, where people were talking about a system change. You see, the institutions had failed us. The institutions through which people were expected to express their sovereignty had failed. The executive presidency, the legislature, and the judiciary also, to a great extent, had failed the people. That's why they took sovereignty into their own hands and decided to demonstrate their sovereignty in the streets. So we thought, why don't we come up with a purpose? So we saw these three aspects of the Aragalaya through the workshops, and we decided we are not going to focus on the relief and on the protest so much. We will protest, but the main focus will be on working towards the change that we want to see in this country. And we thought largely constitution, that is the soup that we are in, no? The mess. So then, with those ideas in our head, we crafted a purpose, and we're very happy that we could do this, because we thought, as artists, what can we do? We thought we can energize people to do what? To act with courage. For what? For their needs, for their rights. And then with these words and ideas, we came up with a purpose. That is, the purpose of the Artists of the People's Movement is to energize people to act with courage for their rights and their needs, and to exercise our sovereignty.
Peter,
Now,
if I may interrupt there, let's just
yes, that's a good point to break.
Yes, step by step, Peter.
Yes.
When you say encourage, like if you get into like practical level, how do you plan to do that? Through what?
Good point. Good point. Energize. How do we energize? Now, take one of the three objectives we have. The first objective is sovereignty. We want to talk about people's sovereignty, because we saw it for the first time, Madhubhashini, being exercised in its real sense. Exercise the sovereignty of the state that lies on its people. So we want to explain this to people, because this is not a constitutional word that is there for constitutional experts. So that is where, as artists, what are we good at, Madhubhashini? Storytelling. So we want to take this idea of sovereignty and tell this in simple songs, poetry, book articles, plays, movies, documentaries. Tell this, and particularly with the stories of the Aragalaya also mixed with this, and talk to them about the possibilities when people come together and act as sovereigns in their own interests. So that's the first thing.
It's interesting that you say this, Peter, because honestly, that story has been told by artists for decades, even in Sri Lanka, right? The question is, how will they listen? For example, my PhD thesis was on resistance, and I explored the decade after the war on fiction, simple and English, and you wouldn't believe how direct and artistic people have been in asking for a fairer, fairer way of life in Sri Lanka. Will they listen though, Peter? I mean, we could tell our stories, we could play our music, we could make our films. How impactful do you think art would be in a society that is probably more concerned with their anger and getting a job than, a survival?
Now, that's a good point. Now, that's why we are forming, see, we are not leaving it to individuals like what has happened. We are forming a movement. We are forming a group, broad group that can do this in many ways. Now, we have to figure it out. Now, one of the things before we even tell stories, we want to also listen to people's stories, Madhubhashini. We want to go to the countryside, go to the north, the east, the south, and listen. Artists as listeners collect their stories, For example, in Jaffna, people have not really gone and listened to them. They didn't take part in the Aragalaya in the way that people expected, because they had gone through a massive Aragalaya of their own.
Of course.
Brutal repression.
Of course.
And the South didn't take much notice. There were groups of people, by and large. So they kind of thought, you're going through what we went through. 30 years, for 30 years. We didn't have fuel, we didn't have kerosene. And mind you, we couldn't even stand and protest like you guys did. We'd have got beaten and murdered. So first, we also want to listen, Madhubhashini, to these stories. Now, the fisher folk.
People like
artists as listeners.
People like Hasini Haputantri and historical dialogue is actually Malati Diyalvis, the late Malati Diyalvis. They were actually doing that. They were connecting stories.
Yeah.
And I've gone to their launch as well. And it was very interesting the way they did it, Peter. They collected objects and documented the story behind it. And it could be a home they lost.
Right.
How little stories can tell. And I'm glad you're taking it at national level here.
Yeah.
So these people, small groups have been doing it. And
that's
now you're forming a consensus among many artists.
Exactly. With a name behind it. And so that's what, now for example, now take sovereignty. Now, one of the demands under that group broad consensus, a broad topic could be abolish the executive presidency. Now, one of our guys, Redley Silva, you must be knowing him. He was in theater and he was also
he was the cooker.
That's right. Very big, group in Kemadasa's group. So he's now in England. He might come now. He's inspired to come back and work here. So he was telling, we can say abolish the executive presidency, but we are a feudal society, He said there's a king in our head, So we have to break that. Raja kenek kinno api oluwe. That bloody Vadavasam feudal system. We are brought to worship. That is why that athlete came and she fell prostrate at the feet of Naaman. What for? So, you see, we want to do songs and things like that and say, get rid of the king in your head. Now, the other day I went for a protest that invited the political leaders to come. I never go and I didn't speak that day on the repression. Mind you, these are people in the Aragalaya. They had got special chairs for those guys. You see? You fall into that. And like, what for? They're ordinary. They come there if they want to come and talk about the repression. You can be a party leader, whoever, but you come and sit with the people. You see, even those in the Aragalaya have got this slightly feudal mentality when these political...
Peter, I always wonder whether it's our privilege that things we cannot respect. You would probably not think twice about not getting up when a politician walks in, right? And maybe I wouldn't either. But are we then not privileged enough not to care about the consequences, or do we have social capital to buffer us from the consequences that somebody less privileged may not have? Is that what makes us have a spine that doesn't bend?
I have not thought through it. But also, you see, now I'll give you, now that you asked that question, I'll give you an example from 1971, the JVP insurrection, the caste system. Now, Bala told me, Bala Thampo was actively involved in defending the JVP, several members, and he's the one who sustained them while they were in prison by taking them books and Vijayveer and all that. He sustained them and he introduced them to Simone de Beauvoir and other types of Marxists. They knew very little about Marx and Lenin. That's what he told me. Now, he told me that some CID, somebody had learned, when they tortured the people from the lower caste, broke down faster than the people in the higher caste. You see, the caste system, because in the higher caste, you are brought to say, I say, Tabu se kaatawat bandinne. Api usas kule minissu. You see?
Horribly. That makes sense. And I'm thinking there's another kule of economic privilege, Peter.
Yes. I'm just saying, I have not analyzed this. And sociologists and all can contribute to this conversation. I just gave a Sunday thought of that example.
Absolutely.
You see, the lower caste So you are brought up to think, no, you don't bow your head to any bloody fellow. So he's there to, he doesn't care. So it's how you are brought up. Now, again, take an example about privilege and all that. Now, Bopage, again in the 71 trials at the Criminal Justice Commissions Act, he was questioned by the examiner of question documents. He said that the handwriting on a bomb or some explosive was Bopage's. He testified. The examiner of question documents. Once he testifies, that's accepted by the court. So then I think from the bench, Percy Colin Tome or something, and asked him, now, Mr. Bopage, do you know that the evidence of this man? Yes. Do you know that he said that this is your handwriting? Yes. Do you know that his expert opinion is considered to be the fact by the court? Yes. Now, do you say that this handwriting is yours? No, it is not. Then he paid him a compliment. I think he was Richmond, I think, maybe Mahinda, I can't remember the school. From the bench, he paid him a compliment. Bopage and said, Mr. Bopage, you have been a very difficult witness, but I must commend you on being a Richmondite or Mahindian. I'm not sure of the school. You know what? Bopage returned the compliment, said, 2 Mahindians or Richmondites have I met here, and both serving 2 different classes. How do you like that? Without thinking, my God, now the Supreme Court judge just paid me a compliment and thank you, sir. He returned the compliment by saying, 2 schoolboys have I met here from my alma mater, but both serving 2 different classes. Can you imagine saying that?
Exactly. So
I think they're digressing a little. But I'm coming back to you.
But I come back to the point that some of us think that everyone has the same choices when they protest on a one-to-one basis, Peter. Like, even your example of, why did we provide chairs? It depends on who is doing that. And it is, because I teach in campus, I do think it is a privileged person who has the buffers in place to protect them when they defy one-to-one, somebody powerful. And therefore, like, this thing about this girl falling down on her knees, there may not have been a choice. She not being you, for example.
Wouldn't have had a choice, poor thing. Yes. But I'm saying it's
now
our system, no.
Yes,
education system also doesn't teach
exactly.
us.
So there are a lot of digressions we can take here, Peter, because our feudalism is ingrained in our society. It's not out there. It's how, because I teach in campus, Peter, and I think that's a mirror of what society at large is. And the civility we go from grade 1 in school, not questioning, not objecting.
That is the point.
So when you become adults within that system, where, who else can they vote except feudalism? So that's what I'm saying. So maybe I like the fact, I like the fact that you actually pinpoint to arts as maybe ideologically a way out to serve it. But unless we change all the, when you say artist, Peter, if you look at some of the art that is produced in our national channels, not all would consider that kind of art as being important. There might be art being produced that really reconfirms the status quo.
No, that is why in our demonstration we had some slogans. I think Nadi's father wrote, "Apatone ratak ratak, Sindhu kiyanna puluwan ratak ratak." Like, it was bringing the idea of culture. Ranga panda puluwan ratak ratak, apatone ratak ratak. We want a country. We want back our country where the arts can flourish. So now again, I want to take an example of the power of art. Now you remember Somalata's Vikurti. Now the other day they went to every school, Madhubashi, and the schools allowed them to perform. They challenged the school system of this Kala Kani Vibhaga, and they said Vibhagya pe abhag, e baluat Vibhage, me baluat Vibhage, e baluat me baluat Vibhagya pe abhag. You remember?
I do.
And we were going through the lyrics of that song. My God, man, what a woman she was. Revolutionary. And, simple song, and then it goes on. Then they say Pratipala, Pratipala, Vasika get Pratipala, Kochi get Pratipala, 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 Pratipala. Then, then she says, Vidyava karanno ne. Vidya baron Kalava kyane ayyo kisi wadak ne kala. Adugane Vanija.
Mala, I think. He actually
Vanija, don't do arts.
Yeah.
And in that song they say
Kalava kalot mala.
Oh, it was like, even if you do science, Vidya kala fail una kamak nahe.
I remember listening to this as a child and being impacted by it, especially then. Very powerful play.
So you see, I'm saying that there is power in storytelling. Sorry, I'm talking over you. Go ahead, please.
No, I'm not. You're not. I'm listening.
No, so we are clear that, that's what we can do. Well, listen, collect the stories, put them to song music, and do it consistently, But that's not all. We are not only going to be singing and writing songs. We want to now form this powerful group with more artists, not 50 or 200, 300, 400, 500 people. Then we are now talking, for example, to the IT group. I am IT also background. I was in that. They also came talking about a purpose. They've also inspired. They came down in the Aragalaya. Mind you, they are privileged people. Some of them are paid in dollars, but why did they come out? Because of social consciousness. And a number of them have become conscious through this Aragalaya. In fact, one of them told me, Peter, before the Aragalaya, I used to condemn the IUSF. I said, they're free education. These fellows must be beaten. Then he saw what they really stood for. So now coming back to, so the IT group also were inspired by the purpose of the Aragalaya. Like I said, to energize people to act with courage for their needs and rights and to exercise their sovereignty. They liked it. And they liked our three objectives. What are objectives? First one, people's sovereignty. We want to explain that, talk about it, and get people to act. Second, the ongoing talks with the IMF and the creditors. They are going to place the burden of this debt restructuring on our people. We are not responsible for this. So how can we explain this to the people and say, no, there must be transparency in these talks, and you can't place the blame, the burden. Part of the burden must be taken by the creditors, and it can be done. It has happened before. You need a strong government. Third objective, Madhubhashini, is our resources. These guys are going to sell our resources at a fire sale price. And we will not have anything to build our future. Now, these three objectives caught the attention of the IT group. They said, Peter, we like to adopt that. They have adopted. Now, we can form a broad alliance of the artists, IT, hopefully with that, other groups like Bar Association, all that, and form a broad front. And we can call it the movement for sovereignty, social justice, and equality. Then you see how, now, for example, they're talking about the fishing problem in the north. It's also in the east. Now, Chila also, they had the problem. These Indian boats are coming and doing deep trawling. Now, India has done fishing without sustaining. They're running out of fish in Goa and places like that. They come here with their deep trawling nets. They take our fish lot, the whole bloody lot. Most of it they throw, others they keep. Now, a tuna fetches the highest price in the European Union, I was told, first or second. Our bloody fishermen are sitting without diesel. These Indian boats, big boats, are coming and trawling. Now, if we talk about this, the IT guys said, my God, we'll do the data collection. We'll map this visually. We can do that. Then we can invite marine biologists and NARA and all these people and say, would you like to come and then those stories we can tell. And that will help inspire a movement of the fisher people on this one problem. You see how these come together? That's what we are trying to do.
I do, and the
moment form a broad coalition.
Sorry, yes, Peter, the mention of IT brings the whole domain of social media and digital power, TikTok, whatever, which is the best way at the moment to get messages across. Right? And, in fact, the old-fashioned ways of even seminars don't seem to work with the young people who are the inheritors of the future. So I think the entrance of IT into social causes can definitely make an impact. And I'm pleased to hear that, because
Yes,
that will reach across borders to
that's
take
right.
of the problems we have. So let me just recap. Sovereignty of the people, or that idea, is something that you need to focus on, that you
That's
hope to
right.
help people. Secondly, it's about the IMF and the debt. Peter, this is something which I think we should clarify. Now, right now, if the IMF doesn't, now I know enough about the IMF to know that in a way they welcome such economic disasters, because that is the way that people have no choice but to get to them. And the weaker we are, the more chances we have of not laying any conditions to the IMF, right? Given the situation of Sri Lanka right now, do we have a choice of saying no to the IMF? We don't, no one wants to go back into the petrol and, the hunger and all that. What choice do we have if we don't go to the IMF, Peter? Is it something that y'all are saying that we shouldn't get to, like,
No,
the imperialism of IMF and all that? Is that something that you're saying? This people's artist movement?
no, we're not saying that. You see, firstly, yeah, no, we are not saying that. Firstly, it's very unfortunate that the successive governments, particularly the last government, Gotabes, and even before, have brought this country to bankruptcy. Nobody wants to be in this situation. That is why we are really angry that the people who brought us here are the ones who are still holding power and trying to negotiate with the IMF and so on. So firstly, we should not be in this situation. Debt restructuring specialists, these are not Marxists, these are capitalist debt restructure specialists. They have said you don't want to be in this situation because this means pain. Point number one. So we are in a bad situation, and that puts us completely in the hands of the IMF, organizations like the IMF and our creditors. They are, as Yanis Varoufakis, the former Greek finance minister, said, they are predators. You remember I asked you for the word for one of my talks, you asked your father, Goduru Karagano, predators. What do they want? They put you in this trouble, and then our creditors, another specialist economist, Lee Buchheit, he was interviewed by Echelon, by Shamindra Kulamanavi. He said, they don't want your money. I think Varoufakis also said that they don't want your money. They want your resources. So that is why India gives you think India loves the people of this country? There's mass poverty and starvation in India. What is Modi giving us money? Not because he loves us. He wants to put this country in a desperate situation, give us loans, then they'll come calling. That is why they're giving Adani, who is his buddy, our wind and solar power at 500 million. Who decided on 500? What is the calculation they used? That is what we are talking about. Be transparent. How did you do this? So Varoufakis and Lee Buchheit and all are saying these negotiations can happen, but strong governments go and tell them. In fact, Lee Buchheit, when the Shamindra asked him, Lee, when you go for negotiations, who takes the burden of the debt restructuring? Without batting an eyelid, he said both parties equally. Because he said if you were an irresponsible borrower, there was also an irresponsible lender. Why did you give money to this government, Nelum Pokuna and all these things, Nelum Kuluna? What is the return on that investment? So these negotiations can be done with strong governments that has the backing of the people, not these bloody fellows who brought us here. Can they go and tell the creditors, why did you give bad loans? They'll say, you are the bloody fellows who took it. Your very fellows who are sitting in front of us at the table. So, you see, this cannot be done with a government that does not enjoy the mandate. If you have the people behind you, then you go for a negotiation, say, look, my people are in the streets. I can't force this down their throat. So let's talk. You take part of the burden. Sadly, Madhubhashini, we have to take part of the burden. But we must minimize it, no? That is why Varoufakis said, when he negotiated with the IMF and the European Union, he said, make sure that you don't put in so much austerity that we don't have a growth. Because if you have a GDP growth, he said, let's go for GDP growth. If our GDP growth is high, we'll pay proportionately higher amount as debt. IMF said that's not a bad idea. But unfortunately for the Greeks, the Dutch and the German banks, they were ruthless. And finally, they had to suffer worse austerity. That's a different matter. But what he's saying is it can be done. So to answer your question shortly, briefly, no, we cannot unfortunately avoid the IMF. And that institution has a history of running countries down. They don't love you. But we can still, if you mobilize the people, have the people behind you, we can have the tough negotiations. Otherwise, nobody gets anything. But if they're willing to sell us out and give our resources, ganda, and pocket, even now they'll make money out of this. So
that's the funny part. That's the weird part, Peter. After all this, they still seem not to have seen any fault in the status quo, the way things were done. And it's never mea culpa. It's never, maybe we also had something to do with the way things were, which leads us to the third point. Is your third point fairness or non-corruption? What was your third?
No, resources. Defend our dwindling resources. Yeah, don't give it away. Again, one of these guys, Professor Schultz, his name, first name, I must remember, University of London. He was also interviewed. He was in a panel discussion organized by some organization in Sri Lanka. Again, as a debt specialist, some Japanese guy in that seminar said, this is a good time to, sell your assets. Let me tell you, there was another venture capitalist from a company called Hector Capitals in Singapore. You won't believe this, Madhubhashini. He came on the program and said, you know what? We have the money. Sri Lanka is a strategically located country. And I'm quoting him word for word. He said, we look at your situation with greed. Can you believe that? Openly. He has no qualms. Honest fellow. We look at your situation with greed. And he said, we want your assets, but we want it at a fire sale price. How do you like that? This is what they want. And he's saying it. We want a good deal. We want a good deal.
By fire sale, what did you mean?
Cheap.
Wow.
He wants it. He's saying, you are in a desperate. We don't even, no, Madhubhashini, you have heard people say, no, Peter, Macharu, Niyama Idamakti, no. Amaru Tatte Kinne Ratayan inne. But Macha, Niyama Ganakata Gandapura. But cash then on Macha, you can get even a bigger discount,
Exactly.
That's why then that professor said, no, never sell your assets when you're in a desperate situation, because you will sell it cheap. He said, don't do that. He said the Greeks did that. And a lot of Chinese own assets in Greece now. You need your assets to build back your country. So we'll have to value it, quantify it. What's the value? That's what the IT and all of us can do. They can quantify these things and say, this is the real value. You're coming fishing here. All right, let's talk. We'll give you can take a certain amount. You pay us something for it. This is our maritime border. Okay, we'll take 25%. You can fish this amount. Some mechanism. Adani, 500 million. Some more scientists can calculate. A unit of solar is so much. You can calculate. Somebody can come up with a formula. No? Then based on that, we can say, why? It's not 500 million. It's 1 billion. And let's do a joint venture. You get 49, we get 51.
Are we though, Peter, in a position even to negotiate? Like they say, beggars can't be choosers, right? Have we now gone beyond negotiation?
See, they want a deal, right? Negotiation, yes. No, Madhubhashini, negotiation. So we will start. But don't go like beggars. That's the point. That's the point. Say, no. We are in a difficult situation, but we are not beggars, And end of the day, it's all about negotiation, no? Of course, there must be something in it for them, but it can also be structured that we have something and we can develop this jointly. Can be done. It has been done. That's my point. But it takes not somebody like Ranil who will sell us out. That's why when he was appointed, the day he was appointed, even before he could show his majority in parliament, the US ambassador shot off a bloody tweet congratulating him. In fact, I wanted to write to her or give a talk saying, I have some questions from the US ambassador. Why did you rush off to congratulate him before he could even show his majority in parliament? You are a democracy. What kind of democratic norm were you following when you wished him, when Gotabaya appointed him, a man who has no seats in parliament? Did you know something that we didn't know? Did you know that he was going to get a majority? Had someone told you? You see, she welcomes him because he will serve the interests of the IMF and our creditors. He will sell us bound hand and foot. He's already said. Now, why do they want to sell Sri Lanka Telecom? It's already a joint venture. It's profitable. Now, why has he mentioned Sri Lanka Telecom as one of the institutions that has to be sold? Why? You see, this is why these are the things we want to tell our people as artists.
Exactly. The fact that the geopolitics of our situation goes way beyond what anyone imagines. We are stuck between forces is something else that, we have to keep in mind. And also, Peter, not knowing the global context of the currents that go and being locally focused on, maybe the use of religion to cover some aspects. These are, for me, fundamentally educational issues. We haven't taught people to look beyond the local, right? So every time, like when you say artists, I'm sure you're thinking of teaching as well, educating people into the fact that how we might think of a very local issue really isn't. It's part of global politics, how they have configured it, how they have wanted us to see this. And the use of ethnicity and religion has from 1948 been a ways of getting people stirred up into acting into ways in which they don't know they're acting.
Yeah, but don't forget, even the Crusades used religion, no?
Absolutely. I'm saying religion
at the Dark
and
Ages,
ethnicity.
because the moment the Islamic countries were highly advanced.
Absolutely.
Mathematics and all that. So
when
the
I say that,
Crusades, they used religion.
I don't mean only Sri
and
Lanka.
they introduced the Dark Ages.
Exactly. I don't mean only Sri Lankan, but everyone has. Every war has used religion, fighting for God and country. So what I'm saying is, the more I hope the artist movement will also think of the educational aspect into which we can
now talking about religion and education, now critical thinking, there is no need for us to go and look at Western philosophers and all that. Take our Kalama Sutra.
Of course.
What does it say? Critical thinking. Mama Kiana is which because your elders tell you, or your teachers tell you, or religious leaders tell you, even if though in religious books, even if I tell you, says Lord Buddha, don't take it as the truth. Is it true for you? We don't have to go any further than the Kalama Sutra to understand critical thinking.
Yeah.
So these are things we can. These are things we can teach Madhubhashi through like our Somalatas. We can talk about these things in very simple terms.
I did not mean in any way that critical thinking isn't part of heritage, Peter. It very much is.
No, I'm saying you're right. It's suppressed.
But it may not be the one that is coming forward right now.
Absolutely.
It might be
sure.
Yeah. So we need
the Dhampasal, they won't teach you the Kalama Sutra.
Or even gender, right? But you hear now in popular media, of social media, even today, about gender. It was Lord Buddha who made the Bhikshuni Sasana first. So,
I didn't know that.
With Prajapati, when other priest said, I don't think it's a good idea to let women enter monkhood, he said, no, they have a right. And there were Bhikshunis and Bhikshus. So what else? I mean, now here, Christianity is trying to get, it's a new thing to get women ordained. But Lord Buddha did it during his lifetime. You see? So so when I say critical thinking, it doesn't mean it belongs to the West or the East. It is something humans.
No. I was not for a moment
Yes.
saying that. I was
Yes.
agreeing with you to say
Yes.
we have it. We have it in our culture.
Absolutely.
But it is all suppressed, no?
Yeah,
They
I
won't
hope,
teach that.
Peter, I hope your movement, when I say you are probably part of it as well, that we also need to think of the system of education that has existed in this
Yes,
country.
yes.
Yeah, it's not.
You know, we thought of taking that. We thought of taking it one of the objectives, but it's so difficult, man. It's wide. We'll get there. You know, we have to be up against. We thought, you know, we are only good at a few things as artists, and we'll focus on that. But through our education, we are also hoping that, you know, at some point we'll try to have an impact on our education system.
Within your group, there will be people who are also university lecturers or teachers. I'm pretty sure there are many in the group that you're going to form.
Oh, yeah.
So they would all be aware of,
Yeah.
what education is. So I hope it gets
right.
there.
That's
Because,
right. That's right.
Till we
Now
do.
we are doing a strategic plan for my school, St. Benedict's, and we came up with a purpose. And it's beautiful. It was something that our founder of the De La Salle order, the priest, the Christian Brothers order who run the school 300 years ago, he had come up. So we took it straight from him. He said, so we said the purpose of St. Benedict's College is to give hope and opportunity for our students to live lives with dignity and freedom. Can you imagine? Nothing to do with getting big jobs and be the CEO and all that. And in our purpose, we don't talk about, you know, getting 4 A's and 3 A's and none of that. Yeah. To get it well and good, we encourage that. But what do? Give hope and opportunity. Not only hope, but opportunity. For our students to live lives with what? What we spoke about at the beginning. Dignity. And freedom. Nidahas manusek mama. So can you imagine? Now we have to make it happen. Now we have spoken to 1,000 stakeholders of this purpose. The parents, the teachers, the students, but it will take time.
Let's get to practicalities again, Peter. What is your next step now? How are you going to tell about these ideas to the people?
Now that we have to work out. So our next, So our next on the 28th we have the symposium. Then we'll get people to volunteer, and I like to do objective 1, 2, or 3. They sign up for one of the objectives. Then
talk about talk about the symposium again, Peter, because maybe some of our viewers.
So we're having a symposium. Yes. Now we're having a symposium of artists on the 28th at the Mahaveli Center, and to explain our purpose and objectives to a wide range of artists who are not. All of them may not have been involved in the struggle in the same way that some of the others. They are mostly on the fringes, but they are concerned about our country. Now, they are not people who will come out, and all of them may not come out and demonstrate and all that. But they'll say, you know what, on these objectives, I'm happy to come and engage with you. So we'll have to collect them, and then together we'll figure out, Madhubashi, how we want to take this forward. What kind of,
what time
it will emerge organically.
Yes.
It's at 9 o'clock, 9 to 12, but you have to register, only 200 seats, no? So people have to register. There's a number to call.
And the program would be in Sinhala or English or Tamil or all three?
All three languages.
Right.
We are very clear.
You don't
all our work will be in 3 languages.
We don't have a poster we can share here, no?
I have.
You're aware of it? Can you screen share?
Immediately.
Yes. I forgot to warn you about that. Yeah. Peter, let's...
No, I might.
I want to ask you a final question before we stop. I'll try to put it in the comment section. Sunday, 9 to 12 at the Mahaveli Center. It's probably your first symposium, right?
Again?
First public symposium?
Yeah, a public meaning, yes, broader artists by invitation, meaning we call people, and we also put it in artist groups and all that. And then artists can call, because only 200 seats, no? So it will be all
thing. Not anyone
not a walk-in. No.
Right. Okay.
So, but they can call. There's a number to call, and then they can register, because we'll run out of places. I think. I'm hoping. that we'll have more than 200, but we are targeting 200 because that's what they can accommodate.
Peter, one final question, because how would you keep it a political in the sense of not connected to a political party? Of course, it's political. Everything is political, right? I mean, but party politics. How, if it's a group of artists who are coming forward to ask for a more equitable society, for justice and transparency and non-corruption, and if it's a group of artists like you and me who try to steer clear of party politics, how can you guarantee that this will not be finally a party thing? Or is that even part of your target, not to be?
Oh my God, absolutely, absolutely. No, that is clear. We are very clear. That's a fundamental rule. We are no affiliation to any political party. Now, there can be people who are members of political parties who can come and join us for these objectives, because you have to sign up to the purpose and objectives. That's it. That's it. That's all you need to do. You can be a member of a party, but the party, we don't do party politics. We do not affiliate to parties. We will not invite the party leaders and all to come and grace our occasion. None of that. Artists as artists. We will first exercise our sovereignty as artists. So that's the only sovereignty we want first in this group. So yeah, we are very clear. We will stay clear of party politics. They can be members of parties and they can come as artists. They've done a play, written a song, you sang in a band, have done lighting for a play. They can come. We don't say, just because you're an active member of a party, you can't come. But when you come here, you work under our discipline of the collective and according to the objectives and the purpose of our group. That's all.
Peter, I can just imagine the criticisms that can come, and one of the best, scapegoatism that we do in this culture is to say NGO karyo, dollar crores, somebody like foreign interference, conspiracy. Mehema kauru hari salli denawa æti kind of thing is obviously going to come into anything that you think is.
We are going to be very transparent.
Yes.
People, they give us money, some 5,000, 10,000, our own people give. Very transparent. We share our accounts with the whole group.
Yes.
We say, here's what we got, whom we got it from, this is what we are spending.
I don't think
and we are accountable to both people who love to give us some. But right now, we don't need so much money.
No.
What we need are resources. We need people's skills, talent, capabilities. That's our money. That's our currency.
However, non-conspiracy based foreign influence you are, the trope of that has been consistently used in this country.
Yes.
Anyone who tries to stand up and say we are different, they'll say, yes, he's getting paid. That's a very common trope.
We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that. That kind of murder. But the fact of the matter is also, Madhubhashini, there are groups who get money from well-funded organizations who have their own political agenda. I have no qualms to say it. So there are a bunch of NGOs. Wow.
You wouldn't be naive enough to think that is also not the case. But the trope of that has been very, very commonly used against many people who have tried to talk about, non-corruption.
Yeah, correct.
So
we'll deal with that. Of course, there will be mudslinging. That will start once we become impactful. There are bots and there are digital trolls will come after us. We'll face it. That's okay.
And does this have to be restricted to artists, Peter, or do you welcome other people like lawyers or doctors, or is it like artist based?
Initially artists. But if there is somebody sympathetic towards our thing, they can. It won't be so hard and fast. But
you can liaise with other groups if they are.
That's right. Now we are forming that. We are forming a coalition. No, yes, they work with us. No, we work together. We collaborate. So artists will be artists, and then they can come together. But if there's somebody say, I really want to. I'm not an artist, but we say, okay, there's an artist in all of us, and we can make exceptions also. But these will develop collectively as we go along. The collective will have to decide on our code of conduct and code of operations and all of that.
Okay.
So it will evolve.
Yeah, your future plans will be decided after the Sunday event, is it?
That's correct. That's correct. That's
Any
correct.
idea of going around the country, to faraway places to carry these ideas through? Because another problem I see is it being Colombo based, where people are anyway preaching to the converted.
Exactly.
Is there any plan to take
That is why,
this?
yes. That is why we want to go. In fact, we should have gone by now because of the fuel and all. We couldn't go. For example, we want to go and talk to our rural communities and other communities, not only rural. Like I said, north plantation. How is this crisis affecting you? The Zapatista movement in Mexico. My daughter was telling me. They used to go to when there was a big election campaign in Mexico and all the political parties and leaders were coming and giving speeches. They put a mic in a village and they sat. So the villagers said, we came to listen to you. Then they said, no, we came to listen to you. So open mic. Then they start talking. You tell us. So we want to know how this conflict, this bankruptcy is affecting other people. We want to listen to them. Not only petrol and home.
No,
How do you see?
And Peter, honestly, one thing again that strikes me is the petrol, diesel, gas struck us now, but there have been so much of our population already suffering from so much lack before the middle class got affected. Unions have been fighting it. We have not been hearing them, but so much so. So let's hope what triggered now, almost everyone got affected, will not die with just us getting through loans or basic necessities, but that we are more open to seeing that people have been living with such, lack much earlier than some of us were affected. So I'm glad that the Aragalia technically is not dead. It's just not in Galleface. So that
No. We were inspired by it. That's why we thought we should help people, remind them. We do movies, documentaries about what the Aragalia was. And it's very touching. In fact, we'll open it with a documentary. It's very heartwarming, sad. Swallowed an insect. But it shows you, my God, there was a time when we did this, So it will inspire people too.
Okay. Peter, thank you. I know you're tired. I know you've been working very hard in getting, everything organized. And so thank you for your time. Thank you for explaining this. And I am going to probably speak to you in Sinhala as well very soon and put both these together. Because apart from everything my channel does, I also want to make Sinhala and English move a bit closer to each other. And if they're interested in hearing you in Sinhala, they might also listen to you in English. The content still affects them. So thank you, Peter. It's important that we spoke about this because it brings to closure my whole series on resistance where I spoke to particular artists, and it's a nice way to kind of end it where we know it didn't end, but this is the next beginning. So I love to stop when one thing ends and another thing begins, and you give us hope very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with the work you do, Madhubhashini. Thank you for giving us a chance to talk about some of the things that you're trying to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. But I'll just end. I knew you first as an actor. I'm so sorry I forgot to mention that you're one of the best actors I have seen. And I knew you when you did Satyajit Maitipe's Marana Samapti, which I think to date is one of his best creations. And because Pradeep did the music, so I've been following your career for like decades now and always impressed by it. I'm sorry I forgot to bring that into the introduction.
Not at all.
But I'll end by telling you how much of a fan I am of your acting. And thank you again for what you're doing at this moment.
Thank you.
Bye then. Okay.